This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good evening from Rome. As we look at the Sistine Chapel, we see black smoke billowing from the chimney. This means the cardinals gathered for the conclave have not decided on a new pope in their first ballot. This means the conclave will continue into at least tomorrow before the world knows who the next leader of the Catholic Church will be. Let me bring in now NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson and our senior Vatican analyst George Weigel. And Ann, let me start with you. Not unexpected.
No, 3 hours and 16 minutes, I believe you clocked this at, since the doors closed in the Sistine Chapel. 133 electors, the largest number they've ever had. So we knew it would take long. It would take a little bit longer. The first vote in Benedict's conclave went to 8:05. This was a lot longer.
George?
It was a lot longer, but I don't think it'll be quite this long tomorrow. There won't be a sermon before they start voting. They'll be more familiar with the process, and hopefully things will move at a slightly less than stately pace tomorrow.
Let me go to our correspondent, Molly Hunter. She's with the crowd assembled outside the Vatican. There's been great anticipation. Thousands have crowded into St. Peter's Square. Tell us the scene when that smoke was apparently black.
Lester, I just want to show you the crowds are now streaming out of this area. There has been so much excitement, so much anticipation for the last 3 hours. And I got to say, every time there was kind of a gasp or a clap, everyone would get their phones up and point it towards the chimney. I just briefly want to introduce you to Elizabeth and Randy. Girls, you've been out here now for more than 3 hours.
Yeah.
What was that moment like to see that black smoke coming out?
It was, kind of crazy. It was.
Yeah.
It was a lifetime experience. We've never been able to experience this before, so just been awesome to get to finally have that moment of relief. And also a historical moment for us.
Yeah. Well, you guys are also lucky. You're in town for the next week or so. So you think you are definitely going to see a new pope come in.
Yeah, we're hopeful, very hopeful. So seeing the black smoke's a little disappointing right now, but just because we're ready and excited to see what is next for the
You'll
church.
be back in the morning?
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely back in the morning. Lester, look at the crowds just streaming out right now. A lot of the people that we have been speaking to for the last 3 hours standing out here will be back tomorrow. They will remain on smoke watch. And everyone is echoing that. Hopeful is what we're hearing tonight.
Molly, thanks very much. Remarkable scene there as we continue to watch the black smoke billowing from the chimney. There was no mistaking it. In past conclaves, there were a few questions of what we were seeing, but very clearly black smoke, meaning there is still work to do for the cardinal electors as they return to voting tomorrow. Ann Thompson, you're with me. A lot of folks will probably try to read a lot into the long period of time that they were working essentially on just one vote.
Right. Well, part of it is they have to get used to it. I mean, they have to write the name of their candidate and then walk the ballot up and then swear an oath and put it in the urn. So there's some of that, but I don't think you should take anything from this. It's just the first vote, and it's a bit of a beauty pageant. Is that fair to say?
It's a first vote that was preceded by what I think we can probably assume was a fairly long sermon from the former preacher to the papal household, Cardinal Cantalamessa. I wouldn't read much of anything into this except that it takes a long time for 133 often elderly men to walk up and cast a ballot. Be a little bit shorter tomorrow, I think.
So now that the voting is over for today, what is likely happening? I presume they'll have a meal. Do they talk about, the candidates at this point?
They'll go back to the Casa Santa Marta for dinner. Those tables usually organize themselves by national group or language group. I'm sure there'll be some discussion of what has happened today. Of course, we have no idea what the voting pattern was today. They're often complementary votes cast on the first ballot in a conclave to someone who suffered greatly for the church, someone who served the church a long time. The real indicator as to where the electoral landscape lies, how it lies, will come in those first two ballots tomorrow morning.
And the burning, of course, not only signifying there's not a pope, but also we know the ballots themselves are burned.
Right.
Before they are burned, is everyone in the room, is your understanding that they know what the numbers are at that point?
They do. There are 3 cardinals who count the ballots. They're called scrutineers. And the third one announces who the vote is for and keeps the scorecard. And then there are 3 other cardinals that verify the count to make sure it's right. So those cardinals in the room have a very good idea of who got the most ballots on the first vote. And now I think what happens over dinner and at breakfast tomorrow is a discussion about where the votes are going to go on the second ballot, who's got momentum, or where the momentum could be.
Yeah, and George, I know this is a secretive process, so we only have so much insight into that. But how would that likely go?
The general pattern, Lester, is that if you can grow your vote total, you're in good shape. If you peak at a certain point, flatten out, your candidacy is most probably over. But in a supermajority voting system like this, where you need 2/3 to win, a strong minority of 45 can really drive the decision making in a way that's not the case when you have a majority voting process. One other thing to add to what Ann just said, individual cardinals are keeping their own scorecards. Now, they're supposed to have those destroyed before they leave. But yeah, no, I think tomorrow morning they'll have a much better idea of what the correlation of forces, if I may say so, like that, is.
All right, let me go back to St. Peter's Square. Molly is standing by there with the crowds, thousands who packed in for a view of a large jumbotron there in front of the basilica, showing focus on that chimney. Molly?
Lester, Vatican News tells us that about 30,000 people were here. I've got to say, after that news came out, it looked like people were still streaming in. So now you can see everyone's leaving. It was absolutely packed. And being here just about a week and a half ago with about 250,000 people, there was still room to move around, and there was a lot of joy. Everyone was very respectful tonight. And again, we spoke about this earlier, Lester, but this kind of communal atmosphere, though, for tourists who were just curious, who happened to be on vacation, for people that flew directly over for this, for people that live here in Rome, who kind of heard earlier the announcements, heard the singing coming out from these jumbotrons and were called to the square. It was this unbelievable experience to be out here. Very diverse, lots of different languages, lots of different flags that we started to see, Lester. And we are keeping our eyes out, of course, for little pockets, kind of national pockets popping up with flags. People were chanting. The other thing we noticed tonight is that occasionally someone would get excited somewhere in the crowd and some applause would break out, or someone would point at the chimney or in the direction of the chimney, and it might have just been a bird, but people were getting jumpy by the kind of 3-hour mark, Lester.
Yeah, waiting. I think we were all a bit curious as to what's taking them so long. We'll probably never have the answer to that question, but I think it was widely shared around here, especially as the evening grows cool and a little less comfortable today. Molly, thanks very much. And as we look ahead to tomorrow, remind us how this works. They'll take a total of 4 votes tomorrow.
There'll be 2 ballots in the morning. And if there is no Pope elected on the first ballot in the morning, they won't burn that until the second ballot happens, and then they'll burn both of those together. And then the same process happens in the afternoon.
And then if we get to Sunday and there is no one selected, things
There's
change.
a pause.
Yeah.
There's a day off from voting. The senior Cardinal Deacon, who's Cardinal Dominic Lamberti, would address the whole group. There would be a whole day for people to talk to each other and see what they want to do, and then they'd pick up the voting again on Monday.
But we haven't gotten there in previous recent.
No, and I think it would be exceptional if we got there this time.
All right. Well, thanks to all of you for waiting it out with us here as we continue to watch. That concludes this NBC News special report of the first day of this papal conclave. We'll have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com. And a full wrap-up tonight on NBC Nightly News. I'm Lester Holt in Rome. Thank you for watching and good day.